Hey Lutz, just got back from England with the men's team. The women's and men's team traveled over to England for 10 days. An outstanding trip, awesome trip. First time the program's done it in 20 years. We took off Saturday, August 1st from Seattle and flew to Reykjavik, Iceland on Icelandic Air, which was pretty cool. They gave us free movies. Never been to Iceland before. It's kind of like you'd think, gray and cloudy, but not as cold as you'd think. So we landed there and had some Icelandic food in the airport, and then we took another 3-hour flight from there into London. We got picked up, and quickly the first thing we did was shuttle off to Wembley Stadium to watch the Charity Shield match between Chelsea and Arsenal. Traffic in London is horrible, and we were late and we were running to the stadium, but we got there sometime in the first half, had great seats, almost field level seats. Arsenal beat Chelsea 1-0, but it was a great way to start the tour. From there we took a bus about 2.5 hours up to St. George's Park, which is where the national teams for England train, and we stayed in the Hilton Hotel there. Got up the next morning and trained on their indoor national training field, which was awesome. Took a tour of the facility and got our first practice in, and then from there we headed up to the Manchester area. The men played their first game and had a rough outing, lost 3-0, but it was a pretty cool environment, a little English 4th Division stadium, and the women's team were coming up with a chance to cheer them on, so a good way to start the trip. And then we moved into the city of Manchester and stayed there. While we were there, we toured Old Trafford in Manchester, which is the stadium for Manchester United. It's the largest club stadium in England. The women's team, we played our first game against Blackburn Rovers and won 3-2, so that was a pretty cool experience. And then while we were there, we also got to tour the Manchester City Academy facility, which was again unbelievable, like 2 gates to get in, 12 fields, awesome, right across from their main stadium, the Etihad. And we played their women's reserve team there and lost 3-2, but they're an outstanding team. Their first team plays in the Super League there and has 4 players off the England World Cup team this summer that took 3rd place. So a club that really takes their women's soccer seriously, and a great development game for us. Finished up in Manchester with kind of a free day. We toured the National Museum of Football, Soccer there, and then we also looked at Liverpool, so did all the Beatles things where they originated. That was a pretty cool city, right on the water there, pretty close to Ireland. And then after our 3-4 days in Manchester, we headed back down to London. The men played another game in Manchester there and won, I think, 5 or 6-1 over a club called Big Fish, which was basically a culmination of coaches that coached in the Man City Academy. So that was a pretty fun game to watch some former pros that are now coaches play against the PLU men's team. And when we drove down to London, the men's team played their final game against an academy team down there, and I think they won 5-1. So a good way to finish up their tour. While we were there, probably one of the highlights of the trip is that we got to go to we were there for the opening weekend of the EPL weekend, so we went to Chelsea's home match against Swansea. And some of us got season tickets. John and I got a chance to sit in a pretty cool seats to watch the game. Chelsea, it ended up to be a 2-2 tie, but to see a club in a club stadium was in their own environment was really cool. And then the women played their final game on the Sunday against Crystal Palace. Some of the men's team went to watch Arsenal West Ham on the final day, and then we kind of toured London after that, saw all the sights, Big Ben, Westminster Abbey, Parliament. Took a boat cruise on the River Thames, so really cool experience. And then we left the next morning on the 10th and flew via Reykjavik back to Seattle. So an unbelievable once-in-a-lifetime experience for the student athletes, something that we would look to do again. And I think the cool thing is that pretty much for 10 straight days, there were 51 people on a bus, 2 programs, parents, coaches, players, and everybody got along for the most part. So I think it was a great display of PLU and Pacific Lutheran Athletic Department, and just how 2 sports teams can really come together and enjoy a great, awesome experience. So again, just want to say thanks to XL Sports Tours and the men's team and the women's team and all the parents for all their help, because it was a great once-in-a-lifetime experience. Go Lutz!